Welcome to Take Your Medicine podcast. My name is Phil Cowley. I'm a pharmacist of 25 years, and I became a pharmacist, thought I was the smartest person in the world, and then I started listening to my patients and realized they know more than I do. Well, what this podcast is the time where we get to hear from people who are wise, not because they went to school, but because they had to live through it. And today we have Breelyn van Leeuwen. She is beautiful. She's a mother of 4 and she loves skincare. And today she's recovering from surgery. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't know how rough the recovery would be, or I probably would have pushed this back a little bit. So if I adjust or move my, drain or something horrible.
Now, you're the first person in the state to have this surgery done, as far as you know. Is that right?
At least by the surgeon that I had it done from. So what I had done, and I think a lot of women can relate to this. So I'm a mother of 4. I have a 10, a 7, and then a set of twins at the end that are 2. And my abs separated. It's called diastasis, when the middle part of your abs split and you get that nice gap. And if you're doing a sit-up and you peak, you can Google how to check if you have diastasis. But many women, if not most, after pregnancy have some kind of gap separation in their abs. And I wanted it fixed. I had some back pain issues, and I just kept being told if we close this gap in your abs, that would probably improve. But the only way that they told me I could do that is to have a tummy tuck. So, they cut you from hip to hip, open you up, sew your abs back together, then they cut off the loose skin and sew you up, which is great if you need that. But I didn't need any loose skin cut off. It wasn't necessary. So then I went on this hunt to try and find someone who would fix it. And I found a doctor in Newport Beach, California, one in New York, and I found one in Utah who said, I've never done it, but let's try. Okay, sounds good.
That sounds real encouraging.
Sounds great. Yeah, he's an incredible surgeon, so I trusted him and he did a fantastic job. But isn't that crazy that as many babies as we've had here and as many women have this issue, there's no one I could find to fix it. And I'm in the medical field, so I know I'm connected. I know people, and I couldn't find somebody. I think that's wild.
I think it's kind of telling of the way that so I always see is we treat the medical system as a big herd. And that's the way that evidence-based medicine works, which I do love parts of evidence-based medicine because they take all this data, make a meta-analysis, and they shove us all into saying, well, this is where you should be at. It's funny because even on surgeries like this, it almost automatically becomes a cosmetic thing, assuming someone doesn't like the way they look before they even walk through the door, rather than being structurally, I want to be sound. It's like, oh, obviously you're going to hate your body. Let's do it this way.
And especially in Utah, unfortunately, I think that's a huge assumption. That's very, very true. Yeah.
And it propagates that, it's that thing that you look at it and you look at pictures from like 1950 and who was beautiful and how they look. And we see them now. And I often think that if aliens came down and saw our most gorgeous people right now, they would look at it and say, well, that one's got some sort of a malformation. It doesn't look right anymore. If they were, it's just an interesting propagation of self-esteem issues to me.
Oh, I agree. And the truth is, for women, I think we do go through so much. I think pregnancy is one of these things that it's just so commonplace. There's millions and millions of people on the earth. Billions, how many are there? I don't even know. And so it just feels like pregnancy isn't that big of a deal, but pregnancy is a massive, massive deal. Every pregnancy, every delivery, every recovery. And we don't really get to put ourselves back together without feeling like it's in vain sometimes. And I think that's hard and that's sad. Women shouldn't feel that way. I worked in urologic surgery for a long time. And a lot of what I saw with women were these conditions like, they sneeze and they pee, or they can't go to a Zumba class without wearing a pad, things like this. And women don't know that there's ways to fix that. That's not normal. It's common, but it is not a normal part of aging. It doesn't have to be a normal part of aging. Say that again.
Say that common, but not normal, like 3 times, because everybody needs to hear just because everybody's got something doesn't mean it's normal. So
yes,
listen close.
That's okay. So peeing your pants after you have a baby is so common. Nothing to be embarrassed about, nothing to be ashamed of, very common, but it is not a normal part of aging. And it doesn't have to be. There's things we can do for women to help them not leak when they go running or when they go to Zumba, or for heaven forbid, they step off a curb, or
their husband jumps out with a jump scare because he thinks it's hilarious and she doesn't find it nearly as funny as he does.
Yeah. And To be honest, I think most women are really embarrassed and they don't seek help. This is a statistic that's real across the medical community. I was the only female urology provider for, I think, maybe 7 years in Utah County when I was in urology. And when that happened, your wait list gets full pretty dang quick with women because women are embarrassed and they're less embarrassed to talk to another woman about it because I think for obvious reasons. So that was a really beautiful thing that I was able to do and help and talk to women about that. But if you're listening to this and you have some kind of condition that you think is normal, it may not be normal. It may just be common and it can be fixed. So that's important for women to know.
Well, and I love the talk that you're talking about, like a pregnancy situation. So we actually start to adopt, if I'm tough, somehow I get accolades in the world. So I had all these babies and this is my scar. I get to carry this.
Okay.
And then, and I think that quite often that creates self-esteem issues because you're like, well, I don't want to go here. I don't want to go do that. It changes quality of life measurements. And so it's so important for someone to think it's not me being vain that I don't want to have to pee my pants. It's not me being in vain that I'd like to do sit-ups and not have my abs separate out. It's not in vain that I want to do certain things because those things, there's a big gap between wanting to be your best and those people who want to look like a Kardashian. There's a huge gap between those. And it's not like everybody who has any procedures done are looking for more than just being themselves.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I think that's so true. I think we've gotten really comfortable just feeling okay. People have gotten really comfortable just feeling like, yeah, how do you feel? Okay, I feel fine. How amazing would it be if we made a doctor's appointment because we wanted to feel great? We already feel good. We feel okay. But hey, can you help me feel great? Can you help me age amazingly? Can you teach me how to age well and be the best version of myself? Not just okay. I think we've gotten really comfortable. I got really comfortable in that space too. You're a busy mom. I was a professional. I was working. I had kids. I mean, I got comfortable in that space too, to just feel okay. But we shouldn't just feel okay. We should be striving to feel great. Wouldn't that be amazing if doctors' offices covered visits for, ICD-10 code, wanting to feel great? It would be such a game changer.
Don't you think that there's a lot to say? Okay, so I say this in a lot of podcasts. I'm going to say it now. I've never met anybody who went into medicine, a physician's associate soon, because you guys are changing your name on us, which is awesome.
Yep.
Because you're not really, you're not assisting them anymore. Like you're full on doing your thing. And so I love the name change.
Thank you.
Pharmacists, doctors, nobody got into it thinking, I want to be mediocre and make people feel like garbage.
Right.
But as you jump into this, you realize that the Wizard of Oz is really in medicine. Like he's standing back there. And so everybody gets beat down in like, well, I have to see 19 patients today. And the person comes in and they're not dying. And yes, they have aches and pains and they don't like the way this works, but I got 19 patients. And so they're going to be okay. You hit the 70% mark. Have a good day. I'm going to the next one. And I think that there's a real problem in medicine in general, not because the providers don't want to give it, but rather the system itself has kind of beat the crud out of everybody.
Yeah. The system has beat everybody. I mean, you get 15 minutes. That's not even enough time to go through a medication list and get an update on, the last 6 months of their life. It's hardly any time to dig into the places that can really make a difference. The system is definitely, it's broken. Yeah, without question.
And the funny thing is we spend so much money. That's what irritates me. So you take a country who spends more than everybody else, but then we hate our system more than anybody else. And so now there's these extremes like, oh, now we have to go completely socialized or we have to, and I'm looking at it thinking, why do we always have to swing so hard? There's better solutions.
Yeah. I'm not sure what those are. I don't know how to fix the state that the healthcare system is in, but I do think the big part of the problem is that we're just constantly treating disease instead of prevention. I think so much focus is placed on, well, now you're already sick. What are we going to do about it? As opposed to, how do we even prevent that from becoming an issue in the first place? And then early intervention is obviously the next best step. But I teach now in a PA program. And when I went through it and going through teaching, it's not any different. I had one lecture on nutrition. Medical school students get one lecture on nutrition. I gave my students one lecture on nutrition because that is the system, that is Western medicine. And a lot of what we eat, what we do, our physicality, our muscle mass, what we put on ourselves, all of these things determine our health. And yet the focus of my education was, no, we're not going to teach how to prevent. Just this is what you do when something's broken. This is how you treat it, which is valuable and important because the human body is designed to break. We're designed to fail. We're designed to die. It's, the one product that is designed to not be there forever. So knowing how to fix something that's broken is very important. I'm not trying to undermine that, but having a bigger focus on how to prevent things from occurring is even more powerful to me.
Can you imagine, instead of paying for skin cancer treatment, the Mohs treatments, they're all up there, right? What if you gave everybody endless supplies of their favorite sunscreen? Which one would be cheaper?
Now you're talking my language. You are speaking my language.
Well, we talk prevention, and it's really funny because we tell people, like, sunscreen, and I'm going to talk sunscreen because Breelyn did something amazing. Everybody has to understand how hard it is to do what she did. So she's got her whole line of sunscreen. It's a daily shade. She did it for her kids. We're going to jump into it. We're going to jump all of it. But she didn't go out there to a turnkey place and say, okay, I want to make my own. What do you have available? Throw me one of your products. Because honestly, anybody who's listening, I can show you how to do that with any of them. Like, there's so many companies. Instead, she went crazy and decided to do it herself, which retrospectively, I bet you she questions a little bit because it took so much time and effort and money. But she made a sunscreen because her kids reacted really poorly to sunscreen. And instead of saying, well, we're just going to leave it alone, she fixed it for herself and put a lot of time and money. And it's a beautiful product.
Oh, thank you.
But when I was looking at it, I thought to myself, it's really weird how we will fix the skin cancer, but make people pay for sunscreen, which then inevitably leads them to buying, especially when they go through a lot of it, the cheapest sunscreens out there. So I was thinking, what would happen if we gave away sunscreen to everybody?
I would love that. If I had a genie that popped in here and I could have some, like one of my 3 wishes, free sunscreen for everyone would be a wish. Do you know Utah? So we're in Utah. I know people are watching this all around the country, and across the country, skin cancer is the most common cancer in America. Hands down, no question. But in Utah, it is the #1 state in the whole country for melanoma, which is the most dangerous form of skin cancer. Now, Phil, this is the craziest part to me. The #1 cancer in America is skin cancer, and it is over 90% preventable with the right daily habits. You can't say that about very many cancers. If someone came to you and said, I can guarantee you with 90% probability that if you just do these daily habits, there's a 90% chance you'll never get the most common cancer in America. I mean, we would do it, right? And yet that's the reality of safe sun practices, and people still aren't doing it. I think one of the most interesting pieces of this is that, and this is something I didn't know, I wasn't taught this, I've learned this going through this journey of creating the sunscreen company, but up to 80% of sun damage in a person's entire life happens before the age of 18.
So when was your worst sunburn? Like, I always tell, like,
oh my gosh,
let me tell you. I need the whole story too. I don't want the abbreviated. I want to hear the boy that made it so you wanted to sit out, whatever it is. Let's hear your worst sunburn, because I have mine. So let's hear yours.
Here's the even worse part of this. This is what pops into my head. I don't think you can retroactively get in trouble by the police. Hopefully you can. I remember.
It depends on statute of limitations. We'll watch them close. I'm very aware of statute of limitations for my own past. So we'll see where you're at.
I remember being 15. I had a permit, but not a license. And I would take my mom's car, and she knew where I was going, to the tanning bed when I was 14, 15 years old on a weekly basis. I would put those little stickers on, of like the Playboy bunny, which I was always obviously. The Playboy bunny. And at 14 years old, you have no idea what that means. It's just, I don't know. And a heart, smiley faces, a star. And it was so exciting to see how tan I could get removing that sticker. I mean, talk about people coming, I would say in 50 years, when people see tanning beds, they are going to think they were just torture devices, because who creates something that gives you, it's just like, go lay in there and get cancer. This device will give you cancer when you're 50. Go lay in there for 20 minutes.
Guaranteed will give you cancer.
Guaranteed.
It'll be right out on the side. You're like, that's going to be named my tanning. Guaranteed cancer. And I bet you people still show up to use it, even if I named my tanning beds guaranteed cancer tanning beds.
They do, because people want to be tan. That's important to people. People want to be tan.
1993, I was working at Showbiz Pizza, Chuck E. Cheese's, and there was a girl who loved to go get those stickers, and she loved to show everybody, which stickers she got from it each time. And it was like the whole thing.
We've all been there.
The whole thing. retrospectively, she was probably flirting with me, but when my hands were inside the pizza soap while I was washing dishes, I probably was thinking I'm not on my best here. But, you know, so for me, Lake Powell,
Oh,
I
yeah.
went down there and I needed to get my base tan. You know how you love that here? That like, I need my base
Uh-huh.
tan. And the
Uh-huh.
only way you could get a base tan is if you shed like a lizard from head to toe, like it's coming off to where it's just your eyes left, like it's coming off. So I went down there first day and I just toasted myself, like toasted. And then I spent 4 days inside the boat, couldn't go outside because it was so bad. And then from then, I've always known that that week in Lake Powell, it at some point, all those users who still tell me I need to put on sunscreen, they're right. I'm going to get melanoma. Like I know it's coming and I almost make it a joke because we know it's a joke. Like, oh, that'll give me melanoma.
The truth is, we didn't know better. When I was young, I mean, like I said, my mom was like, have a good time. You know, we didn't know better. And now that we know better, we have to do better for our kids. But back in the day, I mean, yeah, it was baby oil at Riverside Country Club to see how tan I could get. It was on the boat at Lake Powell, same thing. I look back at that now that I'm a 38-year-old woman. My perspective is completely different than it was then. And even skin cancer aside, if we're talking vanity, nothing worse that you could do for your skin than expose it to sun on a regular basis. It's the quickest way to get wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, make you look like an old woman faster than anything else on the planet is exposing yourself to sun. Skin cancer aside.
Especially when you're drinking your Diet Coke or alcohol, because then you've dehydrated out and all of the cells, the chondrocytes, all of them, they're dying in droves while you're doing it. So you get that one moment of looking good, and then you get the rest of your life being a wrinkled mitt. And so,
yeah,
it's one of those, I'm 100% with you. But to be honest, there's a lot of questions out there. Now, my personal opinion is that the chemical sunscreens are generally safe. You say generally safe across the board because generally you never know for sure. But I know more people than not really hate them. My wife hates them because when she puts them on, she can taste it even if it's not near her mouth. And she's like, what in the world is going on? Because she can taste it. But in your case, you moved into, so there's the two categories. I'll let you explain it because you put all the research into it. But there's two categories. There's the mineral, which are really skin blocking. And then you've got the chemical, which kind of take the light, absorb it, and take the radiation and twist it and get rid of it. You went completely towards the zinc side. You've decided we're going zinc. Why did you decide to go that way instead of, they're hard to work with. Zinc's hard to work with. So why would you go that way?
Zinc is so hard to work with. Well, the reason that it all came about, I think mothers will appreciate this very much. Well, any caregiver, I think we don't give dads enough credit to. Dads are amazing. My husband's super involved. So any caregiver will appreciate this. So when it was 6 years ago, I was down in Rosemary Beach on 30A in Florida, and we were doing a cake smash for her 1-year birthday. You know, that moment. And like, I want the picture of her eating the cake on Rosemary Beach in Florida. And I had run out of my normal sunscreen that I had been using, and I grabbed one at the local grocery store, and it had a baby on it with the dog pulling off the diaper. We all know the brand and what it is. Had babies right across it for sunscreen. Slather it on her, and within minutes, she just started swelling up. Her whole face was getting red and itchy and irritated. She just had watery eyes. She was just snot, and she was just miserable instantaneously from me putting on this sunscreen. So it was that moment for me that I learned the difference between chemical sunscreens and physical barrier sunscreens like zinc. So chemical sunscreens, the reason your wife can probably taste it is because in order for a chemical sunscreen to work, it has to absorb into the skin and trap heat and release it. That's how they work. And the studies will show you that if you were to if you were to put chemical sunscreen on a person and then test their blood and breast milk 2 hours later, you would find the product in their blood and breast milk 2 hours later because the body has to absorb it in order for it to function. That is how a chemical sunscreen works. Now, the problem with that are many, but in my category of kid sunscreen, the biggest issue is that they're endocrine disrupting ingredients, meaning that they're competing with hormonal receptors in the body. So they're causing issues with fertility. They're causing issues with early puberty. They're blocking these really important hormones that we're trying to protect with our children. And it feels like everything is an endocrine disrupting anymore. But
did you see, I'm coming back, so just push pause. But
yeah.
Did you see that there's a couple new studies that show a lot of the acne treatments with the benzoyl peroxide are now showing the same type stuff that you're talking about? So
I did not.
Because anything with a benzene ring, if you hear benzoyl, avobenzol, any you know it's got a benzoyl or a benzene ring.
Right.
And for people who don't know what that means, you should hear cancer. like that should be what goes off because that's what goes
Yeah.
off in chemist brain. You're like, okay, benzene rings lead to bad things. They
Yeah.
don't have to, but you're always that your brain's like, okay, so we're that. But anyway, yeah, now a lot of your like, what was that one that Jessica Simpson did forever? It was a product that was out forever that was for clear skin. It's been a long time. Anyway, Clearasil, all of those, all the benzoyl peroxides are now looking close because they have like toxicity levels of benzene rings. But back to your thing, I just jumped in because I thought, anyway, go for it.
Well, no, it's true. If you download, have you ever heard of the Yuka app?
I'll have to look it up.
Oh my gosh. You will be obsessed with this thing. Your wife will be obsessed with it. It's called Yuka, Yuka. There's a carrot on the little picture. It's been in Europe forever. It's just getting more popular here. The coolest part about it is you cannot pay to play with this app. So they take products and they rate them according to a safety rating system that is not controlled by groups that are being funded. There's other of these regulatory groups that that rate things, but then when you get behind the doors, you're like, hang on, but you're being funded by X, Y, and Z, and that seems like a conflict of interest. It's really odd. This one, you can't pay to play. So whatever your rating is, you're rating it, which is really scary because you put your product out there, and then when you get the result back, you're like, it sticks. And so you just hope so it lands where it needs to. When you download this app, you can go around your house and start scanning things. You will want to throw away 90% of what is in your home because of the toxicity.
I get more questions about weight loss drugs than anything else right now. Are they safe? Can I stay on them for long term? And yeah, I have a few concerns because you have to ask yourself, why did we need the shot in the first place? Our bodies produce GLP-1 inside the L cells, and those are found inside your small intestine. Whatever you can do to help those L cells produce its own GLP would be immensely important. And in this case, Triquartra's got GLP Activate. GLP Activate combines multiple products in order to help your own L cells be the healthiest they can. And when the L cell's happy, you put out your own GLP and you don't have to take those shots. It also puts the amount that your body's used to having so you can go back to the way it was. GLP Activate. So you want to go right now to triquartrahealth.com and put in code GLP120. Get your GLP Activate, figure out what's going on in there instead of just trying to overwhelm it.
All this stuff happening, right now in Washington, D.C. with the Food Babe, who I think is just doing such cool work with the Kellogg. I think you've probably seen that where they're and dyes that's everywhere. It's the same thing with products being placed on your skin. The amount of regulation against what we can claim to be clean and, FDA regulation, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a clean, natural product for your body.
No.
That's not at all what that means. And so we as consumers have to be so educated and so smart about what we're choosing to put on our body. And even going through all the schooling that I went through, again, it's like the nutrition class. I never took a class in formulation of products. So when I see people out there that are, promoting these chemical sunscreens, half of me thinks, well, I'd rather have people using sunscreen than not. So if the worst sort of two evils is if that's the one you're going to wear it, right? That's because otherwise we know you're going to get cancer for sure. But is there a safer, better option for you that you could be protected from the sun and not have these chemicals being absorbed into your body and causing endocrine disruption and all these issues and potential cancer causing agents? Yes, there is. But it took us a really long time to figure out how to do that.
Well, it's even more than that because I've looked at what you did. And from a chemist standpoint, you did what everybody says K-beauty made the best. And you took and with the microdosing and the way that you tinted your zinc, you don't turn out to be pasty white. But it has a lot to do with how you process zinc. And instead of boring everybody, I'll just tell them if you ever get into chemistry, look on how much it takes in order to take that zinc and put it in a form where it's activated and it be able to work for a sunscreen. But what I love about zinc, and this is what I really love about zinc, everybody's heard about oxidative reactions and then how we have inflammation and things like that. What we don't realize is that when you use a mineral physical blocking sunscreen, we're actually feeding the skin that zinc too. And so the reduction of inflammation is real when they have zinc oxides and zinc in any form in your sunscreen. So that means not only are you protecting your skin from the sun, but you actually, it's shown to increase the number of chondrocytes that put out all of your collagen. So I always kind of look at it, think if I'm going to put one on there, you're doing double duty. Now, you do, when they formulate zinc wrong, it clogs your pores.
It's terrible. It's just like a white, we all know that white ghost, looking kid that's running around. We've all probably been that at one point. Yeah, it's terrible.
And then your jawline gets all those zits because you're being good about using it. You're like, what do I have to choose between sunburns or having, and then so you go back. I want everybody to keep in mind, I've eaten terrible chocolate chip cookies with the exact same recipe. I've tasted really good ones. So it has everything to do with which ones you have. If you've got a zinc one that's not working, the way we make zinc sunscreens now is not like the way it was back in 1995 when it used to be you put it on and then 3 months later you'd finally get it off. So
it's not your mama's zinc, that's for sure. Thank you for appreciating that and stating that so well. I love the chocolate chip cookie. That's a really, really good analogy because it is true. There are some all zinc natural sunscreens, and that really is the root of why I created this, because I started using all natural zinc sunscreens, which you have to be careful about because even though they say zinc, again, there's no regulation to if they can hide chemical filters in their sunscreen. So I would even use some zinc, all natural, like big quotes here, all natural zinc sunscreens. And my daughter would still have a reaction to the product. And then when I started getting smart and educating myself, I realized, this has butyl octyl salicylate, which is exactly like a UV chemical filter. Her body doesn't know the difference. Yeah. It's just not registered with the FDA. But it is exactly the brother of a chemical filter, right? It's the exact same thing.
Well, the salicylates are all the salicylates. For me,
They're
I look
all
at
the
them,
same.
but I forget everybody else doesn't. Like I look at the back, I'm like, well, I'm eating a Twinkie and this is all the sunscreen I have. So I'll go even till on this. Next time I'll do better and eat the kale and put on the right one. But I'm 100%. Okay, but you did talk about endocrine disruptors. And for me, this is kind of like something that I really do believe in. So girls are getting their periods younger and younger. I think it jumped almost 3 months this last year, like how fast it's going on.
Yeah.
And then you and I both have struggled with IVF problems.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, so as a pharmacist, I have my opinions why IVF has become so much more prevalent. Why do you think we're seeing so much more IVF problems from your opinion? I've already spoke mine there. Everybody already heard mine enough times.
Well, let me just first start off by saying this. When I went through IVF, I had no idea how common it was and what a business it is.
Oh, yeah.
I've had to wait 3 months to get my first initial appointment.
And you pay so much money. It's insane for what they have to procedurally. I could make so much money, like egg retrievals, all that stuff. Holy cow, do they get paid a lot per hour?
It's a lot. It's a lot. And interestingly enough, everything on my end with testing and all of that came out fine. There wasn't an explanation for it on my end. I had 2 girls before. We didn't have issues getting pregnant, and then we couldn't get pregnant. We wanted to have 1 more. Bonus, we had twins, so we had 2 more. But it wasn't, all the testing came out and there was nothing within me that they could identify was an issue. But my husband had, some issues with his side of it. And I think, and there was never a reason to say this is the reason why, but
I bet he loves it too. People always love it when they shout out the swimmers, but hey,
I know
it's easier as a guy. I got to be honest with you. I was wishing it was me because my end's so much easier. Because if it's me, it could be a lot easier. You know what I mean?
I know.
Women are so complicated. You guys have way too much plumbing.
Women are complicated. We have a lot of very intense things happening down there. The truth is, there's a lot of things that don't get talked about. This goes kind of back to prevention. But when we started doing research about first of all, no one talks to you about, hey, before you jump into IVF, start going through your life and cutting out this, this, and this, or start putting these foods in, or these supplements, or these vitamins. And come to find out he has an MTHFR mutation, right? And no one talks about that. We didn't find that out until after we went through all this whole IVF process. No one tells you about that. And so there are so many things I wish I would have known before we did IVF to try, but no one talks to you about those things. They just, let's intervene and let's jump in and do IVF.
No, I mean, it's producing 30% less DNA and RNA. So it will prioritize where it's at. And nobody says, okay, well, it probably, even if they came to you, and I always think this, even if they came to you as a prescriber, like, it probably won't work, but here are some things you can try. Even if they came in negative Nancy, shooting at the hips, like, it probably won't work, but let's try this. And I always got the feeling, now mine's way past, so I can say this, nobody else has to, but I always got the feeling I went into that and they're like, oh, good, he has cash. Let's move down this road rather than let's see what we can fix. And it wasn't until I got into our 3rd or 4th cycle that I finally went, you know what? I have to figure all this out myself because everybody else has an agenda.
Yeah. And gosh, I'm so torn because the doctor that I worked with, I loved her. I still love her so much. I'm so grateful for her. I'm so grateful for her ability to give us our babies, our twins. And the way she went about it was beautiful. So, I think it is a difficult moment because why is there so much infertility? It's everything that's happening around us. It's all the foods we're eating. It's the sprays on all of our foods. It's the cosmetic ingredients that the skin's the largest organ in our whole body. And we're just coating ourselves with lotions and potions and things that our body is absorbing that is affecting the trajectory of how our body works. So I think it's development of all of these kind of new developments that in some ways have been great, but in some ways have been really detrimental to our health. And trying to cut them out when we identify them and we say, okay, this is one of those. This is an endocrine disruptor. This is one of those moments. You cut it out and you replace it with a healthier alternative. That's really the goal. And that's what we've been trying to do with the family slowly. But it is tough. It's tough to go through your whole life. But we started in our cosmetic counter. We started with our hairsprays and our shampoos and our conditioners. And of course, sunscreen isn't an issue because we have the one that we need. But we started with all of those things. And now we're slowly filtering and going through and trying to make better choices. It's scary. I have 3 girls. So I think about this all the time, all the time.
Absolutely. PCOS is one of those that always jumps out to me too, because
Yeah.
PCOS over the age of 30 has doubled in the last 10 years. PCOS really shouldn't be occurring a whole lot after 30 because your progesterone's supposed to be diving as early as 30, but we're seeing
Wow.
PCOS earlier and earlier. And so I love the world we live in. I got talkies in the room with me. I got to be like completely honest, but I have found that when I do pinpoint something, I didn't believe in the red dye thing. Like I thought there's no way red dye causes like ADD when they first came out 15 years ago.
Yeah.
If I drink something with red 40 in it before bed, I don't sleep. I'm like, oh, crud. What else could I be wrong? And then you look at the structure of the chemicals that they say there's no way it is. And then you take like methylphenidate and you twist it. And you're like, holy cow, I can see how that would fit. And then you twist another chemical. So it's a very real. And to your point, instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to go find something, you're like, well, there's nothing I want with sunscreen. So you made Daily Shade. It's dailyshade.com. You need to go look at it. You're going to actually really, really love it.
Thank you. And I can't take all the credit for the formulation. We have an in-house chemist who, just to give you an idea, our in-house chemist is incredible. And like you said, if I were to call a manufacturing house, right, and I were to say, hey, I want to make a sunscreen, they'd say, okay, give me $250,000. We'll give you a product and you get 4 chances to change it. Like, here's your 4 shots to change it. Okay.
Yes.
And then after that, it's another 25, 50 grand. Well, it took us 55 iterations, 55 changes, and 4 years to figure out how to make a sunscreen that is non-comedogenic, which meaning it doesn't cause pores, is a zinc that you can actually wear and love, and that is safe and truly an all-natural product. It's 99.4% naturally derived. That's how clean it is. And we're top rated on that Yucca app. We're 93 out of 100, which is a really hard thing to do. But I don't want to take all the credit because I am not a chemist. I had to find someone who was smarter than me in that category, find the best person that there was, and get him invested and involved, which we did successfully, and create and be patient enough. 4 years later, we have this product, but I did not do it on my own. This was a huge endeavor with a very brilliant chemist. And it is a tough thing to make zinc look good, but that's our entire mission as a company. We want to formulate using only zinc as the active ingredient because it's been around for years. We know that there's no safety issues surrounding zinc. When there's smoke, there's fire. There's safety issues surrounding titanium. There's safety issues in all the chemical sunscreen. There's no smoke around zinc. There's never been smoke around zinc, right? So now it's just learning how to make it wearable, make it so that you don't look like one of those 1980s, lifeguards. And we did that, but it took a minute. It took a hot minute, and we're still doing that. We have more products coming out, but I'm not someone who is a business person or just decided, hey, I want to put out a sunscreen to start a business. I'm a mom who knew I wanted my kid to wear sunscreen, but I couldn't find one with an ingredient deck I felt great about that didn't make them look like a white little ghost running around. And so I decided to make one, and I, in hindsight, had no idea the thing I was getting into there.
No, it takes a lot. So you've got 4 kids, is that right?
Yeah, 4.
So you've got the 2 older ones are girls, is that right?
Yeah, 10 and 7.
10 and 7. Then you got the twins and they're 2?
Yeah.
And so you and your husband, how long you guys been together now?
Oh my goodness. It'll be 14 years in May. So almost 14 years.
Okay. So one thing I love, because it helps me get to know somebody, I like to hear the story. How did you guys meet? It's really fun for me because you can hear a lot about, I don't know. I love it anyway. So how did you and your husband meet?
Okay, I'll give you the short end. So I was an undergrad. I was just finishing up my prereqs for PA school. Okay. So I was an undergrad and the U of U cut my microbiology lab the day before classes were supposed to start. So I'm scrambling and I had to take this class at Salt Lake Community College. Sign up. I'm in class. And you know how you can feel someone just looking at you off to the side and you know that you can feel their eyes on you?
Yeah.
So awkward. And so
Yeah.
after class, this girl walks up to me and she said, "Hey, you could probably feel me looking at you during lecture." And I said, "Yeah, what's up? I'm Bree. What's your name?" And she
Taking 2
introduced
steps slowly
herself.
away from him, like, yeah,
Yes.
where's my keys?
So odd. What's happening? Yeah. But she then proceeded to say, "I've never done this before, but the second I saw you and the whole class, all I could think of is this girl needs to meet Nick Van Leeuwen, who was her fiance's friend that she'd only met a couple of times." And
Wow.
I thought it was the weirdest thing, and I really didn't take it seriously. But we started studying, and a couple months later, when I figured out she was not a stalker, but a really nice, cute,
She
darling
wasn't going to
girl.
put you in the trunk in little pieces. She figured out you're safe. So yeah, gotcha.
A couple months later, she said, "Okay, I think you need to meet Nick." We went on a blind date, and we were married a couple months later. And 14 years later, this is where we're at. Amazing.
Just for people listening in Utah, a couple months later, that's like 2 years and everybody else. Just so you know, that's a long time. It's pretty normal. And 14 years, you got 4 kids.
Yeah.
And you're still practicing as a physician associate. I don't know if Utah's adapted the term yet or not.
We haven't quite. We're still physician assistant here, but it's coming. I actually teach full-time at a PA program. So I was asked to come on and start a PA program here in the state. And I quit practicing to get that up and running because that was a giant endeavor. And that's what I did I've been doing that for the last 3 years. I teach full-time now. Now I teach the PAs how to be PAs.
Which is great. I mean, it's got to be so rewarding in every single.
Oh, my students, man, they are so brilliant. We just finished doing interviews and I just say this every year. If I would have been interviewing with these people, I would never have gotten it. They're brilliant and they're working so hard and for all the negative that people say about the generation coming up, there's so much good. There are so many people that are fighting to be smart and brave and doing the right things for the right reasons. And it's inspiring to be around these. And they're not always young. Some of them are my age, but to be around these people who are just passionate about wanting to change the world.
In the world of pharmacy, being able to use the bathroom's a huge deal. Consistent, comfortable bowel movements are something that everybody struggles with at some point. And if you think you won't, well, sooner or later you will. The gold standard used to be polyethylene glycol, but there's been a huge push away from it. Polyethylene glycol helps drag water into the bowel, but it also causes huge problems. Inulax has come up with a solution. Now, Inulax has taken 2 types of fiber, a soluble and insoluble fiber, added some inulin to it, and then put aloe vera in it. Inulin works like polyethylene glycol, but it's just a natural sugar. So when you're looking to make sure everything keeps running fluidly and just like you like, Inulax is the very best way to go. And if you go to their website, inulax.com, and put in medicine 20, you get extra savings. So go to inulax.com now and save yourself trouble down the road.
It's infectious, right? It's
Don't you think when somebody complains about another generation, whatever it is? So Socrates actually has a quote where he says that the next generation will ruin the world. It's been since Socrates.
Okay.
I always think when I see that, it's a reflection of the people saying it more than it is the generation we're talking about. Because our generation, my generation,
we're going deep.
We're going deep. Because I look at it and I think, okay, if I don't like what's going on with somebody who's a generation below me, what have I done to teach that individual how to be who they want? And most of the time what you want is you want them to pop out and say, okay, I'm going to be just like you were, but better. But you're not going to do the same thing that your parents did, or you're not going to expect out of me the same things. And so, I mean, if I'm being really honest, Generation Alpha below the Zs, they scare me because they're completely feral and they give zero cares about anything. They just say whatever they want.
Generation Alpha?
So I'm Generation X, then it goes to millennials. So
I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial. Below you is Z. The alphas are below the Zs, and the Generation Z are afraid of the alphas. The alphas are truly raised on iPads, and so they have zero like social structure. They just say and do whatever they want. They'll just stand up and sing. They're doing their TikToks in crowds. It's things that we would have been embarrassed. Alphas give zero cares. And I think that the alphas are the best because they have just shirked off. Like, they don't care about cancel culture. They don't care about anything. They just don't care. And I think it's fantastic because when you talk to them, they're so real and genuine. And yeah, their work ethic is different. But I think if I could have gone back in time to my generation, I would have said, spend more time with your little kids. Money ain't going to do it for you guys. Like, I have major regrets in that area. And so I really hope the next generation, that we teach the next generation how to be great people first and great producers second, because we need more great people.
Oh, I agree. Do you have regret about that? Do you feel like, I mean, it's an interesting conversation. You do?
Like, I look at it and I went out there and I did everything right. So, I got into college right out of school. I went 1 year to college. Then I went on my LDS mission. I got right off my mission. I got married, but I was going to school. I worked 40 hours, 37 hours with my average all the way through school, like even in pharmacy school. Worked, started my own store where I worked 50 plus hours. And then one day I woke up and my kids were too old. And they are the best kids in the world. But your 2-year-olds, I would trade anything for a 2-year-old to come back. And it's not
everyone has so much hate on the 2-year-olds. And the 2-year-old is a cool age. They're figuring the world out. And it is so cool to watch. 2-year-olds are a great age. I'll tell you what, though, let me put a different spin on this as a woman. So for a man, I think that's, especially in our culture and our generation, you're raised to do that. That's kind of your like expectation. You do it and you don't have to feel a lot of guilt around it initially because it's like, that's what you're supposed to do. Right.
Right.
For a woman, it's interesting because I've done all the things. I've been the stay-at-home mom. I've been working part-time mom. I've been a full-time working mom. I've done all the variations of those moments. And the guilt that I've had surrounding that is immense.
Mom guilt is so real. Like I've been warned never to bring it up on podcasts. Like, everybody says, don't bring it up. Everybody will hate you because it's so real.
People should talk about it. It is so real. And when you're saying, break that in the next generation, I'm trying with my full heart to break that with my girls, to let them see me working and doing something that I'm passionate about and loving. And this idea of balance, I think there's no balance. If I'm one place doing well, I'm not doing well over here, right? Like,
say that again, because I love that. That's another one I want to hear out there. There is no
there's
balance.
No balance.
It doesn't
I love when people say that, and when they're like, I'm trying to get the balance, and there's no balance. I mean, and again, if I'm missing my daughter's soccer game, it's because I'm helping with interviews at my work, right? I cannot be at two places at once, and you can't succeed at two places at once and be awesome at it. So you have to pick and choose, and then you have to be okay with those choices. But I have had the culture I've grown up in, the whole thing, I have struggled with feeling those feelings of guilt my whole working life as a mother. And I'm striving to change that mentality for my girls where, you can do all the things, you just can't do everything all at once. And I heard this analogy once where you have all these balls, right, in the air, and some of them are glass and some of them are rubber. And if you drop one of the glass balls, it shatters. You can't take that back. But if you drop a rubber ball, it bounces and someone else picks it up and it's okay. So you have to decide, what are your glass balls? What are your rubber balls? What ones can you drop? What ones can't you? And make those decisions. And it's really difficult. I think us not talking about mom guilt doesn't do anyone any favors. I think it's important that we talk about it and learn how to work around it and thrive in the environment of, look, we are mothers, but we do want to have something else. And that's okay. Right. And if you don't want to have something else and you just want to be a mother, that's also awesome. That's great too, right? But I think
guilt is the worst. It's like the most useless feeling we have. If you have guilt, there's the guilt that comes just because you feel like, regret is different than guilt. I guess I'm trying to say, because guilt is a useless feeling. Regret is, okay, if I had to do it over again, I would do it differently. That gives progress. Guilt is just something you feel and nothing gets better. So don't have guilt. Fix the regrets and get rid of that guilt.
Fix the way you're doing it.
And
I
get
agree
rid
with
of
you.
it.
Fix the way you're doing it. That's really the whole entire key, is fix the way you're doing it. The way that I have fixed the way that I'm doing it, I was so resistant. This is a whole other podcast about the way that I fixed that for myself is I got comfortable hiring people to help me do the things that I didn't have to do. I am the only one who can be the mom. So those pieces I'm keeping, but I can hire help to help me keep my laundry going and do all of the things in my home and all these things that our mom roles. The kids don't remember if I'm the one who washed their clothes or if I'm the one
Never.
who, they don't remember that. They remember if I'm the one sitting on the ground reading them a book or playing with them or taking them here or there. That's what they remember. So I
It
had to
took
get
me 10
really
years to
comfortable.
hire somebody. It took me 10 years to hire somebody to mow my lawn. So keep going. I want
Oh,
you to
why? And
preach.
what
What a
is the
waste of time.
guilt? I don't know. I'm thankful for my husband because he's the one who just pushed me into this. Like, let's get help. Hire someone to do. And I'm like, no, I can do it. I got it. I can do it. You can't. You can't do everything all at once. You just cannot do it. If that's the life that you're creating, that's the life you're designing for yourself. Design it. Design it well. Figure out how to make it work for you, but don't just feel guilty all the time or sad that you're not making it work out, right? I had to design it, and that took a shift in my brain.
Your kids know when you're happy, and your kids want you to be happy. In fact, they will react poorly when you're unhappy. And so when I see somebody, especially a mom, who really is wanting to be that full-time worker, but then ends up saying, I just want to be at home, but they're trying to do both because they feel like they need it. The kids know she's unhappy. They also know the one that is at full-time mom and is unhappy. The kids want you to be happy. Your children's behavior will reflect how you feel. And so if you're not happy with who you are, your children have a hard time ever being happy.
I could not agree with you more. Yeah.
So do what makes you happy, because that will make your children happy. And I'm not saying about being selfish, because I got to be honest, really selfish mothers or even fathers, they're really rare. What you usually get is unhappy people in unhappy situations that project onto the people around them. And
I think every listener knows the difference between what you're talking about. I don't.
And there's no happiness in owning a boat and boating every single day. You think it looks good, go do it for a month, you'll be back. There's no happiness. Everybody's like, what are you going to do with, because I've slowed down at the pharmacy. What are you going to do now? I'm like, oh, I already loaded up with new things because I'm not happy with free time. But what I am happy is helping other people. Okay, Breelyn, tell the people where they come find you, because they need to find you, because you're a joy. You're a treasure to us all. Tell them where you need to go so they can find your products, where they find you on the internet.
Okay, let's see. You can go to dailyshade.com. It's the thing that's been behind me the whole time. Daily Shade. And the idea of that is you're supposed to wear sunscreen every day, right? Your kids need sunscreen every day, not just in the summer. It is a daily habit because, like we talked about, up to 80% of sun damage in their whole life happens before the age of 18. So melanoma when they're 50 is a sunburn when they're 15 or 10 or 8 or 5, right? Like that's how long it takes for skin cancer to develop. It develops over decades. So they're meant to wear sunscreen every single day. So it's dailyshade.com. At Daily Shade Sunscreen is our Instagram handle. Those are the two best places to find us.
Absolutely. We will send them there.
Okay.
She is brilliant. You guys need to follow her. You need to go find it and try out the sunscreen. Now, we end every question the same. I say this and everybody hears, but I'm going to tell you the whole spill.
Okay.
When I started on Instagram, it was to save the pharmacy. And then I had a friend, Matthew, when we started to blow up on TikTok, say, you have a platform. You need to decide what you want to do with the world, what you'll do with your platform. And about a week later, I was on a run and I decided if I could do anything, I would make the world 1% kinder. Because you can't change the world overnight, but you can make the world 1% kinder. So I always tell everybody, when you're done, go find somebody who needs a hug, give them a hug, send a text to somebody who needs to hear it. Do something kind today. Let's make the world just 1% kinder. If you had advice for the listeners, how do they make the world 1% kinder?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm a very outgoing person. I'm not an introvert. I'm a very extrovert. I realize that's not how everybody is, but I lived in the South for a minute. I lived in South Alabama for a minute. And I can't tell you how nice it was to have somebody smile at you and greet you when they walked by. It was the smallest thing and it meant everything. And I feel like sometimes in the environment where we live, we're so involved in what we're doing, we're looking down on our phones, but I mean, think about when the last time was a stranger looked at you and gave you a genuine smile and their face lit up when they saw you because of the human connection that we have. It doesn't happen that often anymore. And when it happens to me, it catches you a little bit where you're like, there was a guy at the car wash the other day, this old gentleman, he was probably in his 70s or 80s. And he walked over to get my towel to put it in the dirty towel section just to save me the walk. And he's 80, right? And I'm in my 30s. And he looked at me and he just smiled at me so sweet. And he goes, I got it. And just gave me this big smile. And I thought, it made my whole day. Just that smile that he gave me coming over, just that human connection. we've lost that, I think, a little bit, haven't we, in this generation? We've lost that.
We always should view everybody as a friend we haven't met yet. And
Oh,
then the
I
world
love that.
changes. That's what you're talking about with a smile, because I love it when someone smiles and greets you like, do I know them? And that is like the perfect moment. That person is your friend for life.
Yeah.
Well, this is Take Your Medicine podcast. We have been joined today by Breelyn Van Leeuwen, who is
The Mount Bree is easy. They can call me
Bree
Bree.
Van Leeuwen. And she is just wonderful in every way. If you've enjoyed the podcast, obviously listen to more, follow us, and give us a good rating. And if you haven't, well, I hope you have a great day anyway. So thank you so much, Bree.
Thank you.